Welcome back. We're the Bourbon Junkies. He's Dan. I'm Sean. I'm a little remiss to tell you the fact that we just shot about a half an hour segment and didn't start the soundboard. We both thought the other one started it.
Both of us touched the soundboard. Neither of us hit the record button.
Yep. We both thought the other one started it, and here we are. So here's our currently still unnamed podcast.
We just a TLDR.
We need David to make his intro.
Just a TLDR. High West changed their picks. We discussed that. Neither of us are on board.
Buddy, we gotta re-talk about everything.
Dude, we can't re-talk about everything. We're okay. You know what? Thank God we've only talked about Old Forester 1924 for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, not even 10 minutes. That's like 2 minutes. So what we originally started talking about is I had a story that I'm not gonna retell because I just can't get I can't get the same reaction out of you.
I tried to get Sean to steal a fire truck.
He did,
and then we talked about how my dad had a fire truck when I was younger.
Yeah,
then we moved.
You're a 1% hillbilly because you were driving a fire truck through the woods
in the yard.
Yep.
And then we were on to High West.
We were talking about High West. So High West originally launched all their pick program on finished rye and American, so American Prairie. We were super into those picks. We've done one. I love that bottle.
Yeah.
Really do. I think it's one of our best picks we've ever done.
You know what's a bummer? I forgot about this till right now. What the bummer is? We were lined up to do another one this year.
We were.
Had it all settled. I talked to our boy.
Good news is I really do believe them switching from all finished rye and a finished American into unfinished, age-stated, basically.
Is it
bourbon?
Age-stated?
It's got to be. You're gonna know when you pick it. So you're gonna be able to ask the age of the barrel.
I just realized this, and they might just say no. Think about Old Foresters. None of those are age stated.
What pick have we ever been on that they wouldn't tell us the age though? Like we wouldn't.
Jack.
Chris told us the age.
He gave us a range, right?
A range.
So, but then
he eventually confirmed the age when we picked him. He said, "Oh, this is this age. This is this age." So everyone's been aged or like age stated to us, just not on a label. I will guess it's going to be probably a 6 to 9 year.
If they're that high, I'd be happy.
Bourbon right off the rip.
I hope they're that high.
I bet there are going to be some really premium barrels, and then think it tanks.
Sure. I really hope.
6 months.
I don't think that they'll launch it and
maybe
then divert to worse whiskey. And I just say that because
it could be also super like how many High West picks do you think were out
stock.
there? You know how many High West picks do you think they do in a year? A couple hundred?
Yeah, they told us while we were there, and I don't remember, but it was in the hundreds.
So you gotta be able to earmark a couple hundred barrels a year now for just your pick program. Yeah. So they've got to be sitting on a good amount of age stock somewhere.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's theirs. I don't know if it's sourced. It's probably a combination of the two.
So that'll be interesting.
Good luck.
It would be interesting if they were different sources that you could pick from, like the Blue Run pick we went on, which we didn't talk about that. We could talk about that a little bit. Yeah. But the Blue Run pick was like that, where all of the whiskeys were from very different sources.
We so we have a video up on that. That was last Thursday.
Yeah.
Of us going through and picking and kind of Trey laying out the fact that he was like, I wanted different barrels that aren't in the blending process. Yep. So if I earmark something for the single barrel program, that barrel or stuff like it doesn't get blended in.
Yep.
It was like, that's super cool.
It was really cool. I guess
High West, I mean, they won't do that. They're going to blend in those barrels, but what they have earmarked, I guarantee is going to be a combination of both theirs and sourced.
Man, the thing that's weird about High West is one of the biggest distilleries outside of probably Bullet that sources from multiple places right now still. So Bullet's huge, and Bullet sourced or was, I guess I don't know if today they are, but Bullet was a year or two ago.
Still
sourcing
Roses.
From several different places.
A lot of
we know
Roses.
That they had Barton. We know they had Four Roses. Like we know they made whiskey.
Also, real quick, I am drinking my cocktail from the Shaker and Spoon ad. And then I forgot. I need people to vote on this. This is the
what kind of spoon
spoon that Dan gave me.
What's it for?
And if it was like a really vintage, Schmoka-Cola spoon.
The cola with the Coke was real.
Yeah. Because it makes me it is literally shorter than this glasses.
Yeah, that's fair. It is that. But rotating into, I like to talk about the Blue Run thing, and because I found that interesting. We didn't get to talk about it a bunch anywhere else, but
nothing at length.
Not High West. We're both.
Good news is still recording.
Thank God. When you look back, I'm like, not again. Like,
no, I get up and leave.
We're not.
We don't do a Friday.
We're not gonna have a Friday.
See you next week, guys.
To wrap up the the High West thing, we're both interested.
Yes.
I'm hopeful. Is a word I would use.
My hopes are very middle of the road on it.
I bet you they lead with some bangers. It needs to not be 2 to 3 year old American Prairie at cast strength. It can't be that.
No,
it cannot be that.
I don't think it will be.
It can't be, or else it will not succeed. Like that's the thing.
But the problem is like the bar that's set on some of the High West picks, phenomenal.
Yeah,
you're getting a $60 one of one, well, one of maybe very small. Yeah, whatever, what they do in that program is wild. You're getting such a unique offering. The one that you get, you can have sister barrels that are wildly different. Yeah. So really, it is a 101. You can say that about any single barrel, I guess. But still,
well, but it's even more unique. Different because the finishes become different. The finishing times are very different. Yes.
And they do like stuff. Vermouth and like
wild
any wine you've never heard of under the sun.
Rum, Scotch, rye. They'll double rye at rye. They'll like finish a double rye in a rye barrel. Like it's weird stuff. I think
that's what made the program cool.
Yeah.
And then going to just bourbon.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
You've lost what made, I think, it's the charm of having a High West pick was getting that super unique thing. And it was like, you see one at a like a bottle share or whatever. You'd always walk over and be like, all right, cool. You pick it up and read it. Like, what's this finished in? What's the finishing time? This is so cool. Like, and now it's going to be like, all right, cool, man. It's just it's another bourbon pick.
It removes like the pretty sparkly part, right? Like this is cool because everybody knows how High West does it. Removes that. I 100% agree. Yeah. I just hope that it's still good. And as long as it's still good, then everything's good. As long as it's still around $60, somewhere in the general vicinity, and it's still good, and it's not 2-year-old American Prairie, then it'll be great, probably.
And then that Blue Run pick.
And then,
that's wild. So that's a fun time.
Blue Run was interesting because Blue Run. So we already obviously we know how not everybody, because a lot of people buy Blue Run, but we know how a bunch of people, vocal people, feel about Blue Run.
The vocal minority.
Now, set that aside for the pick program conversation because it's so different than them as a company. I would say
yes, very much so.
So. The TLDR on Blue Run is they hired Jim Rutledge to contract distill whiskey for them at Castle and Key. Rutledge, my understanding is Jim Rutledge came up with the mash bill, picked the yeast, did all of those things. He was hired to do these things.
Yeah.
So I just happen to like what Jim Rutledge does there, which we actually found out at the pick. I like that a lot.
You did. Because the one that Dan really, really, really liked and it was like the second place for all of us was actually Rutledge Distilled.
And all of us agreed initially that it was the best finish of the bunch.
Yeah.
And and it was the youngest of the bunch, we found out later.
Yes.
When you compare that whiskey not being a legacy distillery, not being something produced at even a legacy distillery, now produced by a Hall of Fame distiller, mind you. But
still a monster.
When you compare that whiskey and what it drank to what the other things that we're not allowed to share that we were drinking, it's wild.
Yes, it held up super well to what it was being weighed against.
Yeah,
and I would say that slapped so many craft distilleries just right off the
not
map.
Even close.
Yeah, and what he's doing.
Yeah, no. So it was interesting because that's the oldest Blue Run that I've ever drank. Now that was their distillate. And what
good things to come though.
Yeah,
is what that means.
That's exactly
shows
what you
real
hope for.
promise.
Yeah. And that's why this whole Blue Run journey, I guess, is what I'll call it. It was the same with Rabbit Hole for some people, but when these brands launch, and they're maybe like Rabbit Hole when they launched, they were expensive. Not $200 a bottle. Now a lot of Blue Runs around 100 or so. Rabbit Hole was 80 to 100 back then.
Yes.
That was years and years ago.
Yeah,
before prices were getting more out of control. So realistically, it turned into...
Sounds like your kids are visiting.
Hello? Hi.
Hello?
But the Blue Run stuff, what made it so interesting, what will make their barrel program different, and High West could do this, is Blue Run is sourcing from tons of different places for that program. So what's happening is like every Blue Run pick you have. Now I know that this kind of goes anyways because they're single barrels.
Okay, I've only opened 0 of these ever, but Jesus,
Did it? Oh, nope.
Oh, I'm spinning the entire wax.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like look at. My baby is in there. Jared, what are you doing to us? Oh, there we go. I got it to break.
What'll make Blue Run so interesting? Every pick will genuinely be different.
Yes.
Like not a little bit, not barrel to barrel different, like distillery to distillery different. Our pick is very different than, Matt's pick will be, so on and so forth. So,
I mean, we were doing 2 picks that day and they were pretty different.
Yes. We actually found out later, and we won't say where from, but we found
picked
out
the same sourcing.
We found out later that our least favorite sample of the whole day was the same source as the one we picked.
Well,
so like the variation on Blue Run's picks will be unlike a lot of other people's, I think, which would be really cool. And I think and I know they're not sharing I don't believe they're sharing
all their sourcing.
If they shared the age statements and the sources of the whiskeys, people would be
they'd lose
less upset
Yeah.
about the pricing on the bottles.
I agree.
For sure. Because it's not all 5-year-old distillate at all.
You want to talk about some new bottles coming out?
Yeah, we can
talk Old Forester 1924, because that was where we're at when everything died.
Yep.
Mostly my soul, because I realized we were recording. So Old Forester's coming out with a new label. It's a purple. It looks just fantastic. 1924 addition to the row. 10-year age statement. 100 proof.
Old as hell. 10 years so cool, dude. Be able to put 2 digits.
No produced by. Bottled by.
No produced. No distilled.
Bottled by Old Forester.
Nobody knows who made it except some person at Old
Someone
Forester.
does, and even if it is their own, it's interesting to not put distilled in bottled by, because what would happen is right before I went and grabbed the 1897, which is our bottle and bond. It's a 100 proof product, which it's now going to be the new one, and it does say distilled and bottled by Old Forester Distilling Co. at Louisville in Kentucky,
which is just so odd. I mean, I just leads to you to believe it wasn't made by them.
You are opening Pandora's box when you don't put a state of distillation, anything.
Just why wouldn't you?
How do you get around that, by the way? How do you not have
to? They were supposed to, TTV was talking about making changes that would force, I think, the state of distillation only, which is more than none, right?
Yeah.
Like
when you don't have to put anything, you can just put produced by.
I would imagine Old Forester's 10-year will be Kentucky, I'd imagine.
More than likely, because we had talked about the fact that who are you sourcing in volume 10-year product from to satiate a row series?
Yeah.
The
MGP or Kentucky.
Yep.
Those are your only
There's
options.
a couple different places in Kentucky.
I guess, or Tennessee if it's Jack, but
they have a giant portfolio inside of Brown Forman that they can dip into.
Yeah.
Dan had mentioned Woodford. We'd also talked about Jack.
Yeah.
There are things that they could be pulling 10-year stock from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Old Forester's it, though.
I just don't know why you would leave that off.
It feels so convoluted to not put distilled by.
I think it's the opposite. Or both. They're not. These things won't be mutually exclusive. But I think that if you're proud of it, you put distill on it because you made it. The reason somebody puts distill on the back is because they're proud of that.
Yes.
That's their product. They made it. They like it. It's good. Jack Daniel's Coy Hill is distilled proudly by Jack Daniel's, right? So it's one of those things where you're like, of course it's on there if you made it. Of course. If we distilled whiskey, it'd be on the label would say the word. I would
say more than likely the Jack Daniel's or Woodford is probably more likely than anything else.
What'll be interesting though is because Jack's in Tennessee, that makes it weird. There's so much bourbon that comes out of MGP in Indiana at this point.
It could be a blend.
It could be.
I mean, they could be taking 10-year barrels from all over.
Minimum's 10.
Yeah.
So even if it is a blend, which it's some form of a blend, right? It's
no matter what, it's going to be a blend. Yes.
But even if the sources are blend, or you're blending sources, you're still coming up with a lot of different 10-year barrels for probably a pretty solid. There's no way that the initial release is under 50,000 bottles. There's no way.
I mean, back to what you say, it's got to be legacy.
It has to.
It has to be legacy because I think of Eagle Rare.
Brown
that only exists because of how long Buffalo Trace has been around,
Right.
and then putting down barrels.
What's so weird to me, birthday bourbons, 10, 11, 12 years.
President Choice,
President's
we talked about
Choice is
one
9
had
to
dipped.
12
Yeah,
-ish.
9.
So for them to put out a volume product now,
Yeah.
Eagle Rare is a volume product, and then they have Old Rip 10. And I know they're not the same mash bills, but they're the same ages, right? And they're both age stated. So what the difference is realistically is, like you said, Buffalo Trace has been around forever, an eternity.
Yeah.
Old Forester has too. The Old Forester was in Prohibition.
Yep.
Like they had their little permit thing.
Yep.
So the to be, doctors or whatever. So but I think what's so crazy is Old Forester, Buffalo Trace is well known for hyper-aged product.
Yes.
They're well known for 23-year-old whiskey, and they're well known for 18-year-olds and 17s and 16s and whatever. Old Forester and Jack and Woodford, all three of them are not known for anything over 10 to 12.
I mean,
period.
Jack launched a 18-year age statement back in like 1913 or so. So it's like it's been done before in the Brown-Forman portfolio.
But that 12-year is the first time in how many years was it?
It was like 100.
It's
was
like
a long time.
nobody in the Old Forester birthday bourbons. I think the oldest one I've ever seen.
They don't have
12 or
anything
13.
age stated.
Yeah,
yeah. There's nothing that they have a perpetual line
not
that
a volume.
is age stated.
Not volume saying. And if you're gonna put it in row, it's got to be volume. So I think one of the last Old Forester birthday bourbons was a 30 or 50,000 bottle release.
What's more likely is like Jack Daniels being like, "Well, we've got way too much whiskey."
Yeah.
Or they were like, you know what, we at Old Forester just have an abundance of 10-year-old whiskey.
I just feel like then they would put distill on it. If that were the case, I feel like they'd put distill on it. Unless they
I actually have no idea the volume that Woodford does in any way, shape, or form.
It's got to be pretty big.
Yeah, I would assume, but I have no idea the volume that Woodford has.
And I know it's not the same as this, but in my brain, Woodford kind of goes with Makers. And Makers is huge.
Yeah.
Now, I know Makers is probably bigger than Woodford, but like when you go to a store, a normal Woodford Reserve is at every single store.
Yep.
It's in a 375, it's in a 750, sometimes
I mean, they're voluming out at $35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's got to be huge. I mean, it's similar to Buffalo Trace, Makers,
Well, nothing's close to Buffalo Trace, man.
Jack.
Yes.
Old number 7.
Yep. Jack would be
Beats
the closest.
Shit out of that, apparently.
Well, I mean, when you're laying down
a cajillion
couple
barrels
thousand barrels a day, you have volume. So it would make sense that it would be maybe Tennessee sourced.
So the other thing that I want to say that I said last time, but I just liked the thought, this whiskey is the first whiskey in a while. I think this whiskey is the first whiskey to bring back
hype.
Looking forward to a new release from a big distillery. Because so far what's been happening, and I don't know if it's just fatigue or what, but what's happening is that people release whiskey. It generally is expensive. It generally, maybe it doesn't deliver fully for the price tag, but inflation and price on whiskey's gone up significantly lately.
And that doesn't matter if it's craft, legacy, anything in between.
Yes.
It is that where you get a new label and you're like, oh man, I can't wait. And then you're like, oh, it's $250. You're like, oh, come on.
And then you drink it and you're like, that would have been great at 80 or maybe 100.
$125 would have been fantastic and you could have made money on it. But now it's just, it feels so cash grabby and it's all, it's a one and like done. It's like you pump and dump on whatever the next label is. And then it was like, oh, that's discontinued. Go to the next thing.
Yeah. And we're now in the day and age of whiskey where 5-year-old whiskey is $100 and that's pretty normal. Like that's where we're at right now. Is a $100 bottle of whiskey can be $5. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Right? And accepted. It's allowed and accepted. And so since we've moved there, what's interesting is the legacy brands don't actually work that. They don't have to compete there because, listen, not that inflation doesn't affect them the same way. When you make your own whiskey, it is cheaper. This is how real life works.
Yeah, you mitigate costs through volume.
But so significantly.
Yeah.
There's a damn good reason Old Number 7's $20 to $25.
Yeah.
Like they're in
their volume is insane.
And it's still probably like 4 years old or something.
Yeah.
It's not because, listen, they
also do more in a day than most like craft distillers do in a year.
Right. Well, their overhead on all of that, now that it's all set up, but their overhead on making a barrel of whiskey right now is way lower than you and I, even with good relationships, can make a barrel of whiskey.
Well, they have their own cooperage.
Yep.
They mill their own grains. Yep. They have their own do their own mashing, fermenting, everything A to Z. They do their own thing. They're doing it. They're making their own charcoal that they're mellowing out of their barrels. It was like they do everything in-house. It's so mitigated on cost.
Yeah. Like even with great relationships, you and I can make a barrel of whiskey at
Yeah.
Sagamore for X amount of dollars, right?
Yep.
The amount of money that it must.
I bet it's 4x. Is what
minimum.
I would guarantee it's 4x what we're paying
Minimum.
for new make.
In our new
compared to
make,
what they're laying
it's
down.
crazy expensive.
No.
In the current grand scheme of things, it's not. And I bet that it's at least 4. I mean, I bet that it's pennies on the dollar type shit. You know what I mean? And it's just so wild. But
cost play of the game, though.
How much?
How
do you
many
think
millions of dollars
1924
did they
is?
sink on getting the infrastructure in place to get it? It was like, so it took a long time to recoup their costs, but still, it was like now they're in such
They've
a
been doing
steady
it for
state.
100 and some years.
Like
I mean,
it makes sense.
How much do you think 1924 is? Also, what's the significance of the year?
It was there's something on the label. I'll check.
It's weird because that's not when Prohibition ended.
And it says in 1924. Owsley Brown, I don't know if I'm saying that right, took barrels of whiskey with different mash bills to a warehouse on Howard Street in Louisville, Kentucky, and bottled them as Old Forester. This 10-year expression honors the 100th anniversary of this occasion.
They don't even have multiple mash bills. They have a rye and a bourbon. Unless that's a burr rye, it's not theirs. They have one mash bill.
Doesn't say that.
That's amazing. So
maybe
some of it could be theirs.
I was going to say maybe it's theirs and they're sourcing
else's.
the other half of it.
That's a different mash bill. So there's just all that basically saying is there's multiple mash bills in that.
Yeah.
So if it's a burr
did not
rye,
know that.
Hi, baby girl.
We have Luna Lee. It could be their bourbon.
That makes it more interesting.
But it's all 10-year plus too.
Yeah.
So it could be,
That'll be really interesting. And if it's like 100,000 bottles, like that's so much whiskey that's 10 years old.
Yeah.
I hope it's a burr rye. That'd be so cool.
I mean, it doesn't explicitly say it's
How
not,
great
but
would it
I mean,
be with their rye and their bourbon. Their rye is so good. It's Kentucky rye, sweet, high malted barley, oily as hell. And then their bourbon, that would be really cool.
There's no way they have 10-year Old Forester rye, though.
You don't think so?
No.
How old were
that just came out a couple
green
years
single
ago,
barrel
though.
ones, though? 6, 8, somewhere in there.
Man.
They were at least 6.
Did Old Forester rye come out that long ago?
Well, I'm sure they might have made it that long ago.
Luna Lee's
baby
back.
Girl. All right.
All right. We were somewhere in 1924 speak. Still.
Yeah. How much do you think it'll be?
Well, okay. So the problem is Row Series is supposed to be value.
Yes.
Most expensive one is 60.
Yep.
65 maybe.
Old 20 or 9.
Old 20. The old 20. Yeah, the old 20.
Old 20.
But 10-year age statement makes me want to say 80.
Honestly, I was thinking exactly 80.
Which is unfortunate because, like, man, like you're kind of stepping out what I think the core of what the Row Series was.
If it's 70, are you okay with it?
I don't know.
Anything above like 65 doesn't feel right, does it? But it's 10. So you're like,
because the problem is you have 1897, which is like 55
Yep.
and 90 proof.
Yes.
And then you've got 1920, which is 115 proof, and that's 65, maybe. So like you have a $10 variance between those offerings, and that's high and low.
Yeah.
You're putting your bottle and bond, the same thing in there, 50-ish, 55.
Yeah, 45 in some places.
So like your variance shouldn't be that high. So if say 45 for that one. If you throw out 1924 at 80, your variance on that line is now $40.
Yep.
35. You can't have a volume burner that's 100 proof at $80.
Well, here's the other problem.
Is there can you think of another 10-year age dated $80 bottle?
Jack Daniel's 10. That's a limited.
That's LE.
Mm-hmm. Igor 10's 30.
Well, that's a different animal.
How much is Knob Creek 10? 60?
Maybe.
The problem is at
I was going to say you can only go legacy.
The prices are lower, obviously. So, but man,
they're legacy, man. Old Forester's legacy.
I know, but none of the legacies open new lines right now with high age statements. They're all doing the opposite. All legacies right now are doing the exact opposite.
Oh, yeah. They're going cranking high.
Getting rid of age statements.
Yep.
And upping prices.
Heaven Hill.
Like,
just knock that baby off.
Yeah.
On everything. And
Elijah Craig has done it. Like, yeah, on everything. Like you said, I was just going to mention which one.
I was going to say, they've knocked them all off. You look at all the LEs.
Yeah.
I mean, Turkey.
Well,
new management there is really going towards
money.
Let's get as much as we can per bottle.
Yes, money.
Single Rick $250 shouldn't have been that much. The next one.
Yeah, what was that, like $500 or something?
$4, I think is it's going to be. That's going to be wild.
I hope, listen, right now, it doesn't even feel like 80 would be bad.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're like, I hope it's 60. I think everybody hopes it's 60 or whatever.
I would love to see 70. How about that? 10-year, 10-year 100 proof fucking feels awful.
70 and 80 just feel the same.
They do. 10-year 100 proof.
Yeah.
When Eagle Rare exists.
I'm going to be honest. Jack Daniel's 12 was 107 proof and one of the best whiskeys I've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And it was $80.
Listen, it comes out at 50.
It was $80.
Hear me out. If they come out as $50,
yeah.
Where you at on that?
That's probably a great value as long as it tastes good.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. As long as it tastes good, it's great.
They can do some wild shit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope it's a Burr rye. I hope it's their bourbon rye.
I think it's going to be.
I don't think it will be. I just hope it is.
I think it's going to be different bourbon. You're absolutely right. I do think they might actually have Old Forester rye at 100 or like 10 years now.
You want to hear about something crazy that's not Old Forester related?
Jack Daniel's lawsuit?
Jack Daniel's lost a trademark
battle.
Well,
it kind of is.
Against Scottish comedy duo Greg Hemphill and Ford Kiernan over their whiskey labeled Jack and Victor. That was what it was. Jack and Victor is a whiskey label that those comedians made because Jack Daniel's is so good at what they do that they fucking trademarked Jack.
The word, the name.
They're so good.
Jack. They trademarked Jack.
And I'm assuming it's because Jack and Coke and Jack and, whatever. How
they
crazy
trademarked Jack.
I'm pretty sure they have the trademark on Jack.
Okay. Also, you're Jack Daniels. Your rounding error is maybe 1 million bottles in a year.
Right. Yeah. We learned this. Yeah.
You're coming down to a craft source.
To two comedians whiskey brand.
They're selling a couple.
Well, here's the
I'm going to say a couple thousand bottles a year. And you're going to try to sue them.
Do you want to see what it looks like?
Jack and unless it is literally virgin bourbon bottle.
Can I tell you what the worst part about it is?
Virgin
it's not
bourbon exists.
No, it's not bourbon. They sued them. It's Scotch.
Neither are they.
Because they're
Tennessee
Scottish.
whiskey, dog.
Right, but these people are Scottish. They're Scottish comedians.
Come on.
It's Scotch whiskey. It's not bourbon. It's not American whiskey, I guess I should say.
Listen, I love Jack Daniels.
Me too.
For all the things that they do.
Me too. They make fantastic whiskey.
That right there
is bullshit.
Stupid.
Yeah.
That's some petty shit.
Jack and Victor blended Scotch whiskey selected by master tasters Jack Jarvis and Victor whatever. Can't pronounce his last name. So it even under the names says their names, which would in theory differentiate you from Jack Daniels.
Is it a squat?
Nope.
Okay, come the fuck on.
I'm going to be honest, dude. I thought at first when I saw it, so
it's not square.
It's not square at all.
The label is literally a diamond.
Yep.
So it was like there's
with
no
a round with a circle on the bottom.
There's no symmetry between the labels in any way, shape, or form. There's no symmetry in the bottle shape.
Yep.
The marketing, the whiskey, even the spirit at this point in time is not the same.
Want to know how one they lost? Jack Daniels had to pay that distillery $4,000 for court fees. Dude, imagine.
That's not even like a catering bill for one of their events.
Oh my
$4,000?
No. Jack Daniels is worth like $13 billion right now. Imagine it's 11 or 13. That is the net worth of Jack Daniels.
Could you imagine being call them a $1 million company?
Yeah.
Right? Being sued by a $13 billion company.
We're fucked, huh? Immediately we're fucked.
Yeah.
Like that's what goes. We don't have lawyers like that.
They pay more for their lawyers than our company is worth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm happy you lost.
Hand me that Philly blend.
Dude,
I just thought it was so interesting. Yeah. That.
What?
I thought it was so interesting.
I'd let you try it. It's fantastic.
Jack Daniels would sue. Now,
that's pretty stretchy.
If it was Jack and it's a whiskey, I get that. That's fucked up. That's a little fucky. Right?
Dude, virgin bourbon exists, which is literally a complete ripoff of their bottle shape, label, layout on everything. And we're okay with that, but we're going after someone naming it Jack.
Because that would be a design trademark. So this is what I learned. You're allowed to trademark how something looks, and then you're also allowed to trade, which would be your design and branding.
Yep.
Then you're allowed to trademark the words, right?
Okay.
You're not allowed to trademark brand spirits.
You think
whiskey,
like BTAC
bourbon.
like layout is
Yes.
that's
the wine
trademarked?
bottle,
Yeah.
the design of it.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet a lot of money.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We should rip it off if it's not.
Sazerac will sue the fuck out of you. Sazerac sued everybody.
Yeah.
Sazerac sued Castle and Key for saying that they were in the old Taylor distillery,
which they
literally
were.
own. They own it.
They were.
Hey man, we are in it. We can't even debate the fact you're right. Like you said, I like Jack Daniels too.
Love them.
The
think they're
people,
great.
they took great care of us while we were there. They were awesome.
It also
Chris and Lex
seems
were awesome.
that might be one of the pettiest things I've
Right. What did they say about Jack somewhere? Because on the front of the bottle, it says Jack and Victor, and then says Jack's full name and Victor's full name, and says blended Scotch whiskey. Nobody looked at that bottle and went, bet Jack Daniels made that.
Yeah.
Like, what the
There's
fuck,
no brand
man?
confusion in there in
No.
any way, shape, or form.
And so often what I learned a while back was if you can show that there won't be brand confusion, because you're allowed to trademark the identity of your brand and the name of it, and you do them separately. So if we trademark the owl, and then somebody comes up and has the same owl, well, that's
this
OVO. Is it right?
We did change it. I wish I had I wish I had the first iteration.
But like Belroy got sued by OVO because they both did clothing, and the owls were kind of similar. They weren't that similar. They were kind of similar. So OVO won that
They were
trademark.
both owls. Yeah.
All Belroy had to do was turn the owl.
Yeah.
And then resubmit for trademark. They got their new trademark.
Yep.
And OVO doesn't have a problem with this. All you did was flip it.
Yeah.
Didn't change the design.
Yep.
Fucking inverted it.
And
It's so crazy.
to this.
And so, but when you see somebody sue somebody for something dumb as shit, and you're like, what are you taking away? Because they didn't take anything away from you.
No.
It's one thing if they took a bunch away from you in your brand. That's one whole thing. That's an argument, right?
Yeah.
Hey man, that Scottish comedy duo took away 0 sales. So why the fuck are you suing them? And now you have to pay $4,000 in court fees.
By the way, okay.
That's so crazy.
This is the first I've ever heard of it.
That's
second
so
off. $4,000 to Jack Daniels.
It was 3,980 something. Buddy, it's pennies in a fucking well.
I mean, they spend more on just anything else in that company. Like, I don't think there's anything they spend less on than $4,000 in a year. Any reoccurring cost is less than $4,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine they looked at it and all right. Like, that's how it went.
Do you guys want that in cash now or?
Just a second. Hold on.
Yeah.
Just dumps pennies out of his pocket. Oh,
just it's all hundreds.
Yeah. I only got $10,000 on me.
I know it's 3,998, but I'm gonna give you $4,000 and you're good.
That's what it feels like, though.
Yeah.
Go ask Elon for $4,000 and just see what he says. He's just like, all right. It's just unfathomable.
Woody Harrelson in Zombieland, where he's drying his tears at the hundreds.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like Jack had to pay their lawyers, but Jack had to then cover, which they paid more on their end.
They could have lost
for their own bullshit.
Call it 10 mil.
Yes,
10 mil.
Sure,
doesn't matter.
No, they said they sold 16 million cases. Of Old Number 7.
So it doesn't matter.
But they had to pay.
Doesn't matter.
They lose more cases of Old Number 7 than they had to pay.
That's why you pay retainer fees. So it's crazy. Like they didn't actually lose like whatever. They're just paying the retainer fee of the lawyer.
Right, but they lose that money when they pay that fee.
Millions of dollars a year, but
for sure.
It is what it is.
But those lawyers got them those trademarks in the first place.
Yes.
So they're good lawyers.
No shit, man.
They got them good ones. They got them fucking good ones, dude. Probably not like O.J. Simpson lawyers, but they got pretty fucking good ones. Oh, fuck. I lost my train of thought. I had to do with OJ. Oh, so the podcast I listened to called Buried Bones is this really cool old podcast. It's not an old podcast. It's a podcast about old shit.
Yeah.
Old
like
crimes.
Cold cases?
Some are cold, some aren't.
Okay.
Just old homicides, basically.
Yeah.
So
murders.
This woman. Hi, buddy. I don't know what my family is doing today.
That kid's you.
Why?
Because he just came in and said it was made wrong. Right. His life was ruined.
Yeah.
Because of how his ramen noodles were made. And I asked, did you taste it? No.
That's fair.
But are you going to? No.
The answer is no.
That's a miniature you. And I'm going to leave that in this episode.
That's fair. So this this podcast relatively quickly. She was a crime journalist for a very long time.
Oh, you told me about
this.
She's
the host.
Yeah.
The other guy, the other host, he was a famous CSI guy for a very long time. So he helped with the Golden State Killer and the genealogy and all this stuff that is like.
Was he the guy that took off his sunglasses in the opening sequence?
I don't know, man.
Okay.
He might have been. His name's Paul something. Paul, I don't know, Shores, not Pauly Shore. I don't know what his name is. Paul something. Anyways, I'm listening to this podcast. All the stories are from 17s, 18s, and 1900s.
Oh,
so
shit.
They're all old.
Real old.
Some of them are very, because what she does is present the case as a journal. Like she's realistically, she writes books.
Yeah.
Very good storyteller.
Investigative journalist.
So she gets all the information. She has her and one other person do the research. She puts these stories together, presents them to Paul. And then Paul basically goes through them as a CSI guy.
Oh, I like it.
But he goes through them as, today what we would do is this.
Yeah.
Back then what they probably had was this. So they would have probably done this.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's like, they were awful at their, like these were bad investigators and these were
shocker, buddy.
So what's interesting.
It's almost like people were super biased back in the day.
Oh, dude, come to find out, extremely.
So
what I find interesting, I said OJ, which is what reminded me of this. One of the cases that they covered on there from like the 1970s or something.
Okay.
Was the
Not
woman's
long enough.
first case that defended OJ, and was one of the reasons he got off was her.
Good for her.
And they said
she got someone out of a murder charge.
The person in this case did not get convicted.
Yeah.
And Paul was like, I'd be willing to bet money that based on all the evidence, I'd be willing to bet money that person is guilty of what they're being charged, what they would have been charged for.
He was famous. Things were mismanaged.
And not OJ.
Oh.
This is the other case.
Oh, her first case.
Yeah,
I thought you were talking her first case was OJ.
He said no.
Oh.
Her first case is on this podcast, which is kind of cool.
Even better.
And he goes, and they kept saying her name, and he goes, we all know her. We all know her. And I'm like, no, we don't. Nobody else does. You know her because this is your field. Yeah. So finally at the end, he goes, well, she's one of the probably 2 or 3 reasons that OJ got off.
So she's good at what she does.
And he was like, this would have been her first case ever. And he goes, listen, in her first case, she is better than most prosecutors will ever be.
Yeah.
In her first case.
Good for her.
And it was like, that's wild. All you hear about when somebody either is defended well or prosecuted well is that they did a good job right now.
Yeah.
You didn't hear past or even future cases. They were famous for one case. When you hear their early shit, that's kind of cool. That was cool as shit. She got the person off in that episode.
She's like
because
super lawyer now.
She convinced them that they just couldn't prove it. Not that he didn't do it. She didn't convince anybody he didn't do it. He goes, because he did it.
That's literally what law is about.
Yeah.
Is innocent until proven guilty.
But we don't really operate on that.
We don't anymore.
No, not at all.
Everyone has biases.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just, hey, you're probably guilty, right? And you're like, no. And they're like, it feels that way, though.
Yeah, it kind of looks that way.
And now it looks more like that. Speaking of that Coke spoon you had, what's that white dust on it?
Just,
you know what I mean?
You need a little bump?
Oh,
little Jamaican rum?
Well, I got to go make more ramen probably.
You got to okay, hear me out. Just go in.
But when I get in there, I assume that ramen will be spread across our home.
Mix it up, re-microwave it, and be like, hey, here goes a new one. And the kid's you. He's not exactly like on top of it. So
the best part is he goes, she made it wrong. He knows how to make ramen. Like he can make his own.
Yeah.
He does it. So I don't know why he came out here to tell us that when he could have just either made more ramen
because he wants you to do
it.
it. He needs father.
He did just wake up from a nap, my mom said.
I get that. I get that then. He a little grump.
That Barrel King Philly's good.
Yeah, it is.
I like that a lot.
Real sweet.
That is very sweet, which is
super sweet.
A huge fan of that.
Yeah.
But
hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode.
Yeah. There'll be another one next Friday.
Hopefully we can actually hit record moving forward. It'd be freaking fantastic. Like, comment, subscribe. We never said that.
Yeah, do that. Man,
let us know what you guys want to see change, improvements, things like that. How about that?
Oh, that's why. This is finished in oak, strawberry, brandy, Armagnac, and Sauterne barrels.
Oh,
that makes so much more sense.
A lot. The Armagnac makes sense.
Why are those flavors in that rye?
It's wild.
That's why. Man, that's good. Holy shit. Mm-hmm. Oh. Huge shout out to Jared at Barrel King for sending that over. Yeah. Goodness gracious. All right.
I got nothing.
Cheers, everybody.
Try to make this work.
Cheers.
I'm sure it's so chalked.
Cheers.